Resident Evil 4 is a survival horror game that came out all the way back in January 11th of 2005. The game was developed by Capcom and Armature Games and was published initially as a GameCube exclusive by Capcom, but was later published on PC by Ubisoft. This game was hailed by many in the Resident Evil community as Capcom's best release on the franchise. Not one of, not best for the time. No, to this day, many people would argue that Resident Evil 4 is the best Resident Evil game, and for good reason too. This would be the first Resident Evil game that doesn't include the setting of Raccoon City and instead around buttfuck nowhere Spain. However, it does include the cheesy but charming, bingo-loving Raccoon City savior Leon Kennedy. On top of that, combat would be a lot faster paced, with puzzles being still existent but on the back burner. And with combat being the primary focus, Capcom delivered with the variety of enemies that you have to fight with its new Plaga virus, the extremely unique bosses, and the side characters, both old ones and fresh faces. Recently, Capcom has decided to remake a few of their Resident Evil games. Actually, it really wasn't that recent. Capcom started remaking games like Resident Evil 1 for the GameCube in 2002, I believe, but apparently sales for that GameCube remake were very horrible until it was ported for the PlayStation 4 very much later, so maybe that's why they waited so long to remake their games. In 2019 though, Capcom remade Resident Evil 2 for the 8th generation consoles, with the third game being remade just a year later. These remakes definitely revived the older half of the franchise, as original fans were able to return to the very faithful remake, while also bringing in newer fans who didn't know about these 90s games but saw how amazing they truly were. Last year, Capcom announced that they would be remaking Resident Evil 4, and 2 weeks ago they decided to release a chainsaw demo to showcase the first 20 minutes of the game to hype up the fans. I made a video on it, maybe go check it out if you haven't watched it, but because of this extremely well done demo, my expectations for this game were sky high. Even though I myself never played the original game, I was ecstatic by the release, as the demo completely knocked my socks off even after playing it for the third time. But now the main game's out, and is it good? Well, why don't you all sit back, relax, and watch as I cover the Resident Evil 4 remake, while also, I don't feel good. What the fuck is wrong with me? So I'm gonna try to avoid saying spoilers. I won't go too in depth about what happens exactly in the story and in the game, but beware of spoilers throughout this entire video. Anyways though, you, as I said, are Leon Kennedy. 6 years after the outbreak in Raccoon City, you have now become a special operator that's designed for covert missions. Your mission right now is to recover the President of the United States' daughter, Ashley, as she was kidnapped and was tracked to be at an underdeveloped village in Spain. This mission goes sour almost immediately, as the villagers within the town seem to be plagued with an unknown disease that seems to make them act as a dangerous hive mind. As you rescue Ashley from the village though, you find out that both you and she are infected with this unknown virus, so extraction from the area is impossible. You also find out that the primary antagonist, Lord Saddler, is plotting to take over the world with the virus that he controls, now called the Plaga virus. So it is up to you to save Ashley from her demise, terminate the Plaga virus before it spreads everywhere, and to kill off Lord Saddler once and for all. The story is very interesting, especially for a Resident Evil game. I love the introduction of the Plaga virus. Actually, I just love the Plaga in general. It's not like the T virus. I mean, it's actually not a virus. The Plaga is more of a parasite. But instead, Las Plagas creates drones that do the mindless bidding of their master, while also mutating at the same time and making everything seem more dangerous and more at stake here. But what I love most about the parasite is how it's treated as a super weapon, something completely unknown by every person, and something that you are infected with and have to counteract. And even though we only see the Plaga Puppet Master only a few times, mainly towards the end of the game, the other characters within Resident Evil 4 really make this game and story shine. To start things off, we have Leon Kennedy, our boy right there. Since the events of Resident Evil 2, Leon has become a lot more battle-hardened and experienced, and due to his special op training for the idle 6 years, Leon is now just a one-man wrecking ball. He's also a straight as an arrow good guy who will make sure his mission will be accomplished, even if that means his life gets sacrificed to defeat the evil. He also really loves one-liners.
Where's everyone going? Bingo? Whoa! God damn, you're a big boy. I am flattered. I'm a one-lady type of guy.
Hola, Luis here. You guys still around?
Well, I wanted to go home, but Ashley just had to see this castle first.
You also have Ashley, the daughter of the United States President and the woman who you are supposed to rescue. At first, when meeting her, she's a very scared and timid person who really did nothing but scream and cry, but throughout the game, she really warms up to Leon by her cracking jokes.
Leon, what are you doing?
Don't even think about trying this yourself.
Me? As if.
And wanting to create a team out of the partnership with Leon. Ada Wong also makes a return. She's still her badass self who will take no shit from any person and will do whatever is necessary to complete her own mission. Her ethics are extremely questionable, but they start to become more and more clear the more we see her and Leon together. You also have Luis, another new face to the franchise. Without delving into spoilers, he was a bad guy that turned good after seeing the evils of Lord Saddler, but he's also a very untrustworthy person as his charisma could easily be interpreted as deceit, but actually, he's just a good guy. For your last ally, you have the Merchant. I did not like the Merchant. And hold on though, let me explain. The Merchant is invaluable, right? He sells vital weapons and upgrades that are needed to progress through the game, with his side quests and extras being fun and all, but the guy won't ever shut the fuck up. For every 5 seconds, there's always a one line from him saying stuff like, "Oh, what are you buying?" or "Selling valuables or your life, it's an easy decision." And it's like, please shut the fuck up. I've heard your lines at least 20 times each now. Just let me think of what I want to buy next in peace. Aside from your allies, you have your secondary antagonists who you have to fight and kill along the way. These bosses felt incredibly unique, with each fight feeling so different from the rest. Like for an example, you have the big and strong guy who could genuinely beat Mr. X in an arm wrestling match that you have to take down in a burning barn. You have a giant fish monster that you need to spear to death over and over again while being dragged on a boat. You got this little fucking twerp who you dome thankfully, but will come back as this huge pain in the ass Venus flytrap monster. These secondary bosses, whether it was the build up to fighting them and seeing how much you wanted to kick their ass, or the fight themselves, are incredibly memorable, simply because no two fights are alike in any way. And those 3 bosses I've mentioned are not the only bosses. There are some found earlier that are just really strong enemies that you aren't able to take on so easily. There are others that are fought very late in the game but are built up since the beginning, so in general, there's just a bunch of bosses that you can look forward when playing this game. The regular enemies are fun to take on as well. You know, you have your typical villager who will be holding a weapon like a crossbow, a scythe, a torch, you name it. They'll be an annoyance, but they're pretty easy to take down. A cool little side note here, but if you use a high-powered weapon like a shotgun, you can dismember part of the villagers. It's insanely gruesome and amazing, but it's so cool with the attention of detail with how the Lost Plagueis tentacles are still moving around and are still in fact alive. However though, later in the game, the enemies can mutate and have the Lost Plagueis tentacles spew out their heads once defeating them, which makes them insanely hard to take on. There's also 2 variants of these mutated enemies, with one being an area damage enemy and the other being a long range enemy. You also have bugs that'll jump onto the villagers and make them enraged. By the way, there's a second bug that'll both fly at you and also camouflage in its surrounding to surprise attack you. Fuck me, man, there's an enemy that regenerates immediately every time you shoot it unless you have a thermal scope that'll show its hearts to shoot. And that's not even all the enemies that you can take on. There's a dog with ginormous teeth, there's a blind enemy that you can use to attack other enemies, and they're all so unique. And what's so cool is that these enemies in Resident Evil 4 won't level up or have increased health and damage the more you play it, but instead will have strong enemies catered to whichever area you're at, making the difficulty flow of enemies feel a lot more natural. Speaking of area, this game is fucking beautiful. There are 3 different areas in the 16 chapters that are in Resident Evil 4, that being Village, Castle, and Island. The Village is a rundown, underdeveloped place, home to famine, plague, and these demonic cultists. Just everything in this village looks so old and so gross, with the villagers here being very obviously incapable of creating something better, or even just repairing the broken mess that they call home due to their mind-controlling plagas. The castle is a more extravagant place, home to the Salazar family. This is kind of the embodiment of that one meme where it shows the fat guy drinking water and the skinny guy drinking the droplets, with the fat guy being the castle and the skinny guy being just a little village. Yeah, that's that place. The castle exterior looks a little bit war-torn by the time you make it over there. That might be because of your fault. But once stepping foot inside the castle, you'll see such a beauty in the interior, like the ballroom for example. You also see an unstable mineshaft right underneath the castle, which shows how the plague was found and used in the very first place. Lastly, there's the island. This was at first home to a bunch of Umbrella researchers, but is now abandoned due to the constant outbreaks of creatures because of the low power output in the research station. This place was soon taken over by Lord Saddler's servants and was completely reinforced by a military leader who I won't say because that'll spoil a major portion of the game. So, just know there's miniguns, AA guns, and more on this broken apart abandoned island. All three of these locations though are incredibly unsettling, with moments where I just really had to sit back and take everything in with the entire atmosphere. Oh yeah, speaking of atmosphere, let's talk about the amazing soundtrack that was composed by this amazing talented person who I will not attempt to say their name because I will fuck it up. Actually, no, I don't need to talk about it, just listen to the boss music from Ramon Salazar's boss fight and tell me that I'm wrong and say that the soundtrack is not amazing. Now let's talk about Lord Saddler. He's a pretty cool antagonist. He controls the Las Plagas hive mind, meaning that he basically knows your every move due to the fact that you are also infected with this virus, but he's a religious man who believes that the Plagas came from the Holy Lord, who to him wants him to spread the holy body of the Plagas plague to any and everyone in the world. He plans for world domination, which questions the role of Luis, as he believes Saddler is a man born into evil from day one. Saddler in general is just someone that you love to hate, as he has every advantage against you while also being a religious prick. So from experience, killing him was incredibly satisfying. But what happens once you kill off Saddler? What else is there to do in Resident Evil 4? Well, you now have side quests given to you by the merchant. These quests usually involve breaking a set of amount of medallions in an area, killing and selling a special animal, or even fighting a mini-boss in a selected area. Doing these quests will give you this type of pink gem where you can trade it for a special item in his shop. He also has a shooting grounds where you can test your skills with different guns. Beating these shooting ranges and getting a higher score will give you different amount of tokens. These tokens are used to purchase a random chance for a charm that'll affect different attributes like healing, damage, and crafting. And just like in the previous remakes, there's of course the New Game Plus feature to get new items at a harder difficulty, and also extra bonuses like costumes and concept art that can be unlocked by doing certain challenges. All of these make Resident Evil such a replayable game, and even though apparently some modes that were in the base game are not in the remake until April of this year, these add-ons by themselves are good enough for the time being. And those are my thoughts on Resident Evil 4. I don't know if this was a good remake of the original game since I've never played the first Resident Evil 4, but I will say that this is genuinely just a good game that I'll definitely be coming back to after I finish making this video. Is this worth the $60 as advertised on Steam? Fuck yeah it is. Apart from the few bugs and soft locks I came across, this was so well worth of what I paid for. Also, I love you Capcom for not making this game $70 for base game. Like, God, everybody stand Capcom for not raising prices. But what did you all think of Resident Evil 4? Did you guys like it, hate it? Leave it down in the comments below. But other than that, I'm gonna end this video here. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys do like this video, maybe hit that like button and subscribe. But other than that, I will see you all in another video. Bye for now.